Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery beyond the veil, the way that the divine leads us on this beautiful breadcrumb journey to collect all the pieces of ourselves on our way home. And I welcome you to this conversation. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love having these kinds of conversations. I love to learn and grow and experience the divine through others' experiences. And I love to have provocative discussions that lead us to another place of understanding and help us to live our lives in a more beautiful way, focused on the beauty rather than the pain quite so much. And so if you're interested in that kind of discussion and inquiry for yourself, you want to be part of that, then I welcome you to check out Butterfly Circle on my website. We start up 3 times a year, September, May, and January. And I welcome you to check out the program on carriehummingbird.com, Kerri hummingbird.com. And today,
uh-oh, I just lost your sound.
I crossed my legs. Today, I want to welcome you to another episode. I want to welcome you to Brigitte Mars. Welcome, Brigitte. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I loved your beautiful opening prayer.
Thank you. Thank you. So Brigitte is a herbalist and a nutritional consultant of natural health with almost 50 years of experience. She teaches herbal medicine at Naropa University and the School of Health Mastery in Iceland. She has taught at Omega Institute, Esalen, Kripalu, and many other places. There's just so many Unity Festivals, Mayo Clinic. She's also a professional member of the American Herbalist Guild. So she's written a lot of books, including the Home Reference to Holistic Health and Healing, the Country Almanac of Home Remedies, and so many more. So you just have to look up her name, and I'll give you her website and links at the bottom so you can check out in the show notes all of her stuff. And she's got a beautiful family, a daughter, Sunflower Sparkle Mars. That's an awesome name. And run the herb camp for kids in Boulder, Colorado. So I love Boulder, Colorado. And her other daughter is a world famous activist and international model, Rainbow Mars. Wow, it's beautiful. So, so we're just going to talk a little bit today about Brigitte's journey to spiritual awakening and where it started and how does that led you to where you are today with all of this? I mean, 14 books and all this, so much accomplishment and expression. How did that get started for you?
Well, I think as a child, like many of us, looking up at the stars and saying, who am I? Why am I here? Is there life out there? What happens when you die? And I used to think, oh, maybe someday I'll learn the answers to those questions. Maybe when I die, I'll learn those answers. So that always really filled me. I had a Catholic mother and a Jewish father, and I really respect that my parents said, you're going to have to find out what you believe in on your own. And I thought that was great. So in high school, I took a class on world religions and had this great teacher, Dr. Manas, and he talked about using soma in India. And I did papers on Buddhism and Hinduism. Naropa is actually a contemplative Buddhist-orientated university where I teach. But when I was 19 years old, I started reading a book called the Urantia book, Urantia, which is a book that claims to be written by celestial beings. And, if you read the book, you'd say, wow, I don't think any humans wrote this. So that's been a big part of my spiritual path for a long time. But, there's a quote in the Urantia book that I love, and it says, we can have spiritual unity without spiritual uniformity. Uh-huh. And that's really been really steadfast in me, because rather than well, I don't believe it exactly the way you do. It's yeah, but we agree on so much, and let's focus on what we agree on. And if there's a little, thing here or there, that's not really the big stuff. The big stuff is how we really are connected and devoted, and we're sharing this planet. So let's focus on what we can do here to make it better.
I love that quote. Spiritual unity doesn't mean spiritual uniformity.
That's right. And so I love that. And, we're in a really interesting time on our planet. And, You know, and I would also say early exploration. My grandmother was a folk healer. She didn't really, you know, say, I'm a folk healer. She just like knew what to do and made soap in a big cauldron and read cards. I always thought like, she's kind of a witch. I know she's Catholic, but I think she's really kind of a witch because she'd read your palm and she could predict the weather. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was treating my classmates at this all girls school for, you know, cramps and headaches and things to help you study better. And I think I really found my calling when one night I had a knock at my door, like, ah, quick, Sally's taken 8 hits of acid and she's having a really hard time. And I'm just so glad they came to my door because, you know, the protocol was call the emergency, go to the hospital, have your stomach pumped. On LSD, I don't think that would be very fun.
That would be very unpleasant, probably, experience.
Yeah, it might really exacerbate things. But, you know, I realized that, you know, natural medicine where you can, you know, be an advocate for the person and help them to be calm. And, you know, even though I was just a kid, you know, I realized that natural medicine is something that's been used by millions of people for thousands of years. And, you know, I really don't need a 2-year rat study from a lab to tell me something about this wise tradition of herbal medicine that goes back and infiltrates in many, many cultures. You know, it's interesting. One of my students gave me a book on her grandmother's, you know, folk wisdom, you know, just like really, you might even say old wives' tales. And what was so interesting is those are the same folk tales my grandmother from Canada said, that your grandmother from China said. So again, it's really beautiful. And I know that when my parents would come to collect me from my grandmother's house and I'd be wearing a little medicine bag with garlic in it or something, and my parents would say, why do you listen to those old wives' tales? I said, because they really work. And, you know, even back then, I didn't like getting shots. I said, no, grand-mère, she's going to give me apple cider vinegar and honey, and that's going to work just fine. And so, you know, still during this time of pandemonium, I like to call this pandemic, definitely pandemonium, but, you know, I still rely on natural medicine and focusing on being healthy and high vibe all the time and, you know, focusing on that rather than how do we treat the disease, rather than like, how do we build health with every choice we make?
Yeah, how do we build health? You know, and we kind of have a disease care system in the United States, you know, where it's just like they don't even notice that anything is wrong until like way over here. It's like all these symptoms now you really are, your body is fighting off an infection or is sick. And there's like all these steps back here where if you just started paying attention to nuance, you would detect like, oh, something's getting started right now. I need to pay attention to that. And then bring something healing or bring a nice herb or, you know, and there's a lot of things that people don't even think about. They just sort of like unconscious. Oh, I'm sick. I need a pill. No, I need an immediate solution to solve this thing. Whereas way back here, it could have been very proactive and then the thing never got started. So I think there's a whole way of thinking that people are new to.
Yes, and you know, I heard someone say like, well, I have high blood pressure, but my doctor's going to help me get it down. And I thought, you know, why don't you get your blood pressure down? I mean, there's things you can do like meditation, drinking more water, backing off of caffeine, using less salt, using less red meat, eating, drinking dandelion leaf tea. I mean, there's like, I'm going to say really, there's probably 100 things that you can do. So, but your doctor's not going to go home and say, don't eat that. Stop that. Put that second cup of coffee back. So, you know, I'm really about empowering people so that they can take more responsibility for their health. And, you know, when people say to me, like, do you cure multiple sclerosis or do you cure fibromyalgia? I would say, you know, I don't claim to cure anything. I teach people how to heal themselves, that with the grace of, you know, nature and God and goddess, like, and the wonderful plants. Like, I'm just a facilitator to help direct people.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's interesting. I started realizing the power of plants when I made my spiritual journey. That was my first stop. We talked about essential oils when we had our little chat. It's like that was my first stop to realize, oh, essential oils could actually be helpful to help me regulate my mood. Rather than needing to take a pill, I could learn about regulating my mood and the energy I'm feeling with essential oils. And then also learning about energy, like emotion is just energy. It's energy passing through the body in waves. And so how can I ground myself so I can be a better channel for letting that emotion pass through me in waves without having to hold on to it or get saturated by it? So plants, though, they have a lot of power, especially our olfactory senses. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, our nasal cavities are in very close proximity to our brain. And essential oils are part of the immune system of the plants, so that if a leaf gets broken on a oregano plant or a basil plant, the essential oils in that plant are going to help protect that plant's immunity from being invaded by fungi and insects. So all essential oils are antimicrobial. So, writers are notorious substance abusers, but on my desk, I have a collection of essential oils to smell. So, right here, I'm smelling cardamom. Cardamom, why is this one here? I just really like the smell of it, but it is said to be an aphrodisiac. It's good for dispelling cravings for coffee. It freshens your breath. It's in the same family as ginger and turmeric. But, essential oils are, like I said, they're all antimicrobial. And so during this time of, pandemic, people are thinking, rather than, if you do wear a mask, or you have to wear a mask, as I do when I work at a pharmacy called Pharmaca, I put essential oils in my mask. So I'm actually breathing the essential oils. Another thing about mask is that our sense of smell really helps to alert us to danger. And so it's really important, don't wear the mask more than you need to, because you need to smell like you left something on the stove, or that your child didn't really brush their teeth after they said they did, or, whatever it is. Smell helps to alert us. And it's really one of our most basic survival mechanisms. And so we may forget what a person looks like or sounds like, but that smell, there's actually something called aromemories that stays with us longer than any of our other senses. And the sense of smell is really registered in our limbic system, in our hind brain. And, one of my favorite books, you might have read it, Carrie, is Clan of the Cave Bear.
Yes, I have.
I love that book. And as a matter of fact, the author was a Urantia book reader.
Oh.
Because I asked her, like, because so she told me that she was. But Ayla, the folk hero, our beautiful cave girl woman, she would like smell a plant and be able to tap into the ancestral memories of like, perhaps my grandmother or my great-grandmother, who maybe I never even met, used this plant for medicine. Because, this is what the animals do. And it's almost like we have not really activated our sense of smell like we should. But, I just want to add, because a lot of people are, concerned about the pandemic. So diffusing essential oils in your room is a great way to put antimicrobial substances in the room that actually help to destroy pathogens. So when, the heyday was really strong, oh my God, the pandemic, I would be diffusing essential oils like eucalyptus, or oregano oil in the room when you sleep at night. And of course, if someone does get sick, those essential oils are going to facilitate breathing, not only for their bronchial dilating properties, but also for mucus dispelling and mucus, they call it mucolytic. They help to break up mucus. I know many of us have experienced eucalyptus at the sauna. But, one other thing about smell, it's very often one of the first things that register, like you walk into a restaurant or something, or you meet someone, and if you don't like the way they smell, garlic breath or morning breath aside, like the relationship's probably not going to work out. Sense of smell is really, really important. So I'm encouraging people to tap into that. But I wanted to say one other thing too, because you mentioned, using essential oils. My second to the last book, The Home Reference to Holistic Health and Healing, really talks about how our physical body is going to affect our mental body as well. So like thinking that depression is like something that everybody has, I think that depression has a lot to do with the health of our livers. And I don't think doctors are saying enough, like, are you making your own salad dressing with extra virgin olive oil? Because all of those canola and soy oil and, might be congesting to the liver. Or are you eating a lot of fried foods?
Or are you drinking a ton of wine?
Yeah, yeah.
Which I was doing.
And, the liver loves the sour flavor. So drinking things like lemon and water and eating more green leafy vegetables. And, just one other thing, Carrie, like we have heard in history and still many places on this earth, when hunters hunt an animal and, use every part of the animal for food and medicine, one thing that we know is part of traditional cultures, the hunter would often eat the part of the animal that was going to give them courage, like eating the heart of the elk or the liver of the rabbit was going to maybe help improve the rabbit's, was going to maybe help eyesight. But when people are eating factory farmed animals and those animals are raised in despair and anxiety and fear and being separated from their young, so young, like, could we be imbibing fear and anxiety and depression and really those animals living a hell life? Could that be making us live in a hell realm as well? So I'm glad it's a big tragedy, but we're speaking out. This is a time of great change.
It certainly is. It's a huge change. I think that this change is an opportunity for people to claim some personal responsibility over their own lives, and especially since there isn't a ready-made pill like here or your ready-made vaccine, like just do this and you'll be fine kind of thing. That enough people are seeing, like, wait a second, that's probably not going to work out very well. Wait a second, there's not been enough testing, or I've heard competing evidence on that, or I don't feel like that's a sure thing, or, so it's kind of like, wow, great. Now there's an opportunity for people to realize, why are you putting all of your decision making in the hands of some external person just because you think they have a degree and they know better than you do? Why are you doing that? Why aren't you doing the research? Why aren't you looking into the options? Why aren't you looking at your personal options, like you're talking about, like learning about plants and trying it out and seeing, what does it work for you? Do you feel like it makes you feel healthier? These are things like I started experimenting with. I got involved with the doTERRA oils and I said, I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling like a little sick today. So, okay, I'm going to get some lavender. I'm going to get some oregano. I'm going to, I'm just going to take a mixture and just go, and then maybe I'll just, for the ones I can rub on my body, I'm just going to rub a little here and rub a little there and just see if that makes it feel better. Like, just going to pray to the plant, please help me. And, I got better, like, overnight. And I would say it's because I communicated with the plant essence and I asked it, which ones would help me with this. And they said yes, and I worked with them.
And doTERRA's On Guard has certainly
a
shining star. I'm a doTERRA distributor, and my daughter Rainbow is too. And I love what they stand for, and helping the planet, and helping to end child sex slavery, and helping Indigenous people have viable income around the world. So I feel like that's a company that's really part of the solution. So yeah, I'm down with that. And essential oils are a part of it, but I also, think food and herbs and teas and supplements, and also our emotional relations. Sometimes, we have a physical condition and I might say, like, well, who's a pain in the neck, or, or why don't you feel supported? And my daughter Rainbow broke her foot. She had gone to Miami to model before finishing high school. And I said, she came back with a broken foot. What? Wearing high heels, walking her friend's dog. And I said, what do you think this means? She said, I think I need a stronger foundation to stand upon before I go out into the world. And I said, right on, that's it. I mean, we just want you to get the lesson. And if we just cover up the illness by doing more drugs, we don't really get the lesson that maybe I need to get more sleep. Maybe I need to drink less wine. Maybe I need to see what happens if I go off dairy products. Maybe I need to eat more salad. So that's all.
Yeah, and I think it's the realization that I switched over into was when I took personal responsibility for my journey. I started realizing, oh, this whole invisible matrix is here for me. It's all teaching me things, and I just need to listen in a different way. and follow a path in a different way to get a different answer and to try something new. It's not here to, like, you know, for me to dumb myself down or torture myself. So I think that people just don't maybe realize that the entry, one of the entry points to spiritual path is your physical body, is your health. Like, this is an entry point. So if you're having struggles with that, you know, this is an entry point to the greater exploration.
And, you know, between the 1400s and the 1700s, you know, no one knows exactly how many people were executed for witchcraft. You know, some say 500,000, some say 11 million, you know, we don't really know. But one of the targets for, you know, practicing witchcraft was herbalists and midwives, because it was believed that, you know, only through, you know, penance and giving money to the church could you be absolved of your illness. And then, you know, the bubonic plague wiped out about a third of Europe's population. And, you know, I think people had to start looking at, well, you know, didn't Jesus heal the sick? And, you know, really what's wrong with helping and healing one another? And it was very often the monks and the nuns and the abbeys who did help to take care of the sick. And it was turned out that, well, they were using garlic and onions and thyme and rosemary and St. John's wort. So, you know, but then after the witch burnings, they had to rename a lot of the plants to give them more, you know, biblical sounding names. So we have names like Solomon's seal and St. John's wort and rosemary, and, you know, it's all okay, but it's, you know, interesting. And so I think that, you know, it was seen that herbalists and midwives knew about things like contraception, which is still controversial in some religious factions. So, yeah, birth control, you know, it's big medicine. Go be fruitful and multiply might have been a good idea at one point, but, you know, when Woodstock was happening, there were about 3 billion people on the planet. And in 50 years, it's now up to 8 billion, you know,
yeah, we might need to think about that policy, right? We might need to think about that policy and be more socially responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So fascinating. Well, you know, there's so much to learn about plants, and so many people enter their plant journey through these essential oils, and I think it's a great start to understanding how plants have innate wisdom, innate healing powers, and that they're a consciousness. Actually, each little plant is its own. Dandelion is its own consciousness. Oregano is its own consciousness. They each have different gifts. And how do we find out what those gifts were? Well, our ancestors learned how to communicate with these plants and experiment that with them to figure it out, right? And even if you never knew what it was, today, if you walked into the woods and you found this plant, if you knew how to use your intuition and listen, you could tap into the information about what that plant is here to help us with. You could find that out and then go, like, verify it now on the internet, right? So you could do that. So how did the shamans in the jungle figure out what plants are there for? They communicate with the plant, they meditate with the plant, they listen to the plant, and then they follow the intuition that they're given. So talk a little bit about your journey with plants as consciousness.
Okay, well, I do want to add that one beautiful way that the plants communicate with us is there's a beautiful philosophy called the doctrine of signatures. And if you look at the word signature, like sign of nature, la signatura. And so roots are very often good for the lower chakras. Like if you're trying to help your reproductive system and sexuality, you know, you might want to eat more carrots and rutabagas. Actually, if you want to feel more grounded, eating roots might be a good thing. And then, like yesterday, my apprentice was about to start her moon time, so I offered her some borscht, which is a Russian peasant beet soup. It's very red, and she says, "Oh, this is so perfect because my moon is coming today." So you eat borscht. Is that a myth? Well, you know, beets are high in iron, and iron does build the blood, so it's not a myth. So we could look at flowers are the sex organs of plants. They're also good for the reproductive system. Kidney beans really are good for the kidneys. Cauliflower is really good for the brain. So is walnuts. So the color, the shape, the way a plant grows. And you mentioned dandelion, and to me the dandelion is screaming like, use me lots, I'm everywhere, I'm right outside your door, wake up stupid people, put away that damn lawnmower. Like, it's noisy, it scares the fairies. But, you know, a really important thing is, you know, as we are looking at our planet in peril right now, and, you know, maybe you're concerned about 5G towers or chemtrails or fluoride in the water. I mean, there's like 100,000 things to be concerned about, glycophosphates in our food chain. But if we look at a plant like dandelion, it adapts to adversity. You know, here's a plant that no one plants, no one weeds it, no one waters it, no one gives it fertilizer, and despite every attempt to annihilate it, it still comes back. And so I feel that the real Jedi plants are the ones, the weeds, and that rather than like, oh, I have to find this rare medicine from Tibet, like, well, why don't you look right outside your yard, start giving your water back to the earth, start creating an edible lawn, and driving, you know, so much to go to the store. I mean, like, we will not buy lettuce again until December because everything is from the yard, whether it's dandelions, chickweed, malva, you know, kale, which we planted. But I love the wild things, and I feel that they are going to help us adapt, that we can tap into their signature of being survivors. And you know, when I learned this, I lived for 2.5 years in a teepee in the Ozarks. And, you know, when this old hillbilly woman told me, like, it was a sentence that changed my life. Why you can eat that there's lamb's quarter, it's wild spinach, and it's good for you. And I thought, oh my God, if we can eat the weeds in our garden, that means we have 2 to 3 times more food in the garden. And so when I'm weeding the garden, I have a colander with me, and I'm picking the so-called weeds to use for the next meal. And our bedroom right now has, like, you know, weeds drying everywhere in a big sheet so that we can save them for the winter, because winter's long here in Colorado.
Yeah, winter is long in Colorado. So I love that. That's beautiful. It's just thinking about things in a different way instead of, you know, what's so interesting to me is that in the Western culture, we've gotten this idea that the green lawn is what really makes a good property valuable, is having this nice big green lawn. And why? What's the purpose of it? Where did that even get started? Why do we want a big green lawn all evenly mowed? Why is that so cool?
Well, that tradition actually got started by the British aristocracy in the 1880s. And it was a way of showing off your affluence. And of course, aristocrats wanted to have a lawn that was suitable for playing croquet.
Ah.
Okay. And it was also a way when people drove by in their carriages, they might say, oh, they must be so rich. Oh, look, you know, they must send the servants to the marketplace, and the doctor must bring them leeches when they're sick. Oh, well, we should be like them. But then, you know, during World War II, people had victory gardens, and, you know, very often the lawns were a place where the sheep or the, you know, the goat or the family cow would graze upon. But we spend 1/3 of our nation's water to water grass, and then we use more gas to mow it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So all of that
It's so
water,
weird.
all of that water could be used to growing food, and then you could drive less because you don't have to drive to Whole Foods to buy kale that's trucked in from California. So we really need to rethink that. And, you know, I honor that, like, people maybe want a nice green lawn to play Frisbee or have a picnic or, you know, let the toddlers frolic. But there's a lot of things that we could plant that also provide food for the pollinators, like the bees and the butterflies that are so important and in demise right now. So, you know, a white clover lawn or a chickweed lawn or a plantain lawn or a self-heal or chamomile. So there's many alternatives. And I do have an article that I did write for Huffington Post, and it's on the internet. If you Google it, it's called Get Off Your Grass and Create an Edible Lawn. So I will direct you to that. Thyme makes a wonderful lawn. So it's time to rethink that. And, you know, another thing I feel strongly about, Carrie, is we need to respect water more. You know, the average American uses as much water in one flush of the toilet than, you know, someone in a developing nation might use for all of their needs. And we just like flush and, you know, shower and, you know, run the water while we brush our teeth. And I'm really like asking people, if we are going to coexist with, you know, 8 billion people on the planet, it's time to think about how we can be more conservative with our water. And something I heard probably when I was 15 was a quote from the Hindu culture that said, if you have water to throw away, throw it on a plant. So what if everybody had a basin in their sink, and the water you use to, rinse some lettuce, or, rinse a dish to put it in the dishwasher? What if we just, opened the front door and gave it to the raspberry bushes, or the mint plants, or the, calendula out there? So just food for thought. But I always do that. And I think that, we have to make changes. We can't just, go out of the coronavirus, whatever thing, this pandemic, and go back to business as usual. I would like to see that we are all rethinking some of our practices about living together, about being more resourceful, about wasting less. And I think a lot of us have realized, gee, I haven't been to a restaurant or the store in a long time. Maybe we can not spend as much on things that are not so great. Maybe we, hopefully a lot of us are thinking about growing gardens and planting fruit trees, because, even the mainstream media is saying hungry time's coming. We've heard that farmers have destroyed, thousands of heads of cattle. Personally, I would have preferred that they just set them all free, and whoever wanted to capture a couple to take home and put in a barn or in a chicken coop or something. It seems like such a waste, because all lives matter, and bees' lives matter. We're doing a bee-in on Sunday to raise awareness about the bees. It's going to be on Zoom. And just like the first bee-in happened in San Francisco to raise awareness about lysergic acid, we're being a little subversive to gather together. People are protesting all around the country. We're gathering together to protest the use of pesticides and the desecration of this beautiful planet that we live on.
Yeah, the use of pesticides. I saw a beautiful interview with Dr. Zach Bush, who talked about how, everything is connected and related, and we don't understand that nature has a process. So, we mow over a natural meadow, and then we put in pesticides, to kill everything, and then want to grow our crops we want to grow. But then what happens? The weeds come back and multiply, because the weeds are there to reestablish the ecosystem, but we don't know that because we're ignorant about how the earth works, most people. So then we just put a bunch of, pesticides down to kill all the weeds. And now what? Now we got them twice as many the next year, because nature's desperately trying to build the ecosystem back. We don't understand how it works. We're just ignorant.
And it's killing the bees.
And it's killing the bees.
Well. And the bees pollinate 3 out of every 4 bites of food that we eat. So when we, have a grass lawn that never produces any flowers, or we pour rocks over that vacant lot, which could be a community garden, we are contributing to the demise of the bees. And, right now, vanilla is the second most expensive spice on the planet, because it has to be hand pollinated, because the pollinator bee that used to exist is, endangered or very rare. And, think how expensive apples are going to get when they have to be hand pollinated. And, right now that's already happening in some parts of the world. So food for thought. We need to get right. All lives matter, and we need to be a lot more respectful. And the word side, pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, it means to kill.
Right.
Homicide, suicide, it means to kill. So stop buying side things and get right with the universe, and think about planting more things that produce flowers and pollination for our wonderful dear allies.
Yeah, and stop trying to control everything. Let nature do her thing. She knows what she's doing.
But I also see that the domination of nature, about it's almost like dominating, controlling nature, because she's wild and feminine and free and unbridled. We have to control her and rein her in. So I kind of see that as like domination. And so that needs to change too. I embrace the wild. I eat the wild. I breathe the wild, and it makes me wild.
And it makes me wild and free and happy. Yeah, exactly. So much more interesting than a shaven lawn, so many more opportunities. Yes. Exactly. You know, and of course I've had many, many journeys with plants where I've learned a lot about life and a lot of things that surprised me, Brigitte, actually. Because when I was a young girl, my mom would smoke. She would light a cigarette, take some puffs of it, and then put it in the ashtray while we were watching TV, and then leave the room for a second to go do something, come back. And while she was gone, I would smash that cigarette out. Because I was like, I hate cigarettes. And I wrote this whole paper about how cigarettes damage your lungs, and it's awful, and it's just terrible, and you get lung cancer, and then here's a healthy lung, and here's a lung on cigarettes, and all this kind of stuff, right? So then I found out a few years ago when I started my healing practice, I started learning about indigenous teachings. And I learned that tobacco is this sacred plant. Tobacco is like this amazing master teacher plant that teaches us about protection and listening and the respect for spirit, and it gives a vehicle for prayers, and also for clearing really toxic energy. And I've been working with tobacco now for probably 5-6 years in my healings. And at first I started opening to it and I was like, ooh, I just didn't like it. But then I had this experience in the jungle where I went and did a dieta with tobacco, where I drank tobacco juice for like a week. All of a sudden, tobacco is my friend. I was like, oh, you're actually clearing me of parasites, and you're actually helping me to be strong on the inside. You're actually here to support me. Now it's like my ally. It doesn't smell bad. I don't even smell it now. I'm just like, oh, this is just tobacco. Also, don't inhale that thing because I respect the medicine. I don't inhale tobacco. No way, no how. So I feel like there's just really huge misunderstandings about plants and their actual medicine in our culture today.
Well, you use the term like using it in a sacred way. And the word perfume comes from the Latin to purify through smoke. And so people would burn something, whether it be tobacco or juniper or sage or cedar or lavender. And as the smoke ascended, it sent your prayers heavenward. And so, I don't know that many people who pray before they smoke, but certainly in ceremony, in Native American ceremony in Central and South America, tobacco is used as a shamanic plant. So I encourage people who are doing any type of consciousness altering substance to offer it with prayer and intention. I think that that's a big difference between smoking a pack a day with no thought or ritual, or using it to facilitate meditation. So I certainly understand that. And tobacco is a very strong plant. Nicotiana, and it is used as an insecticide. And I know when I was little and I had an earache, my dad would blow tobacco smoke in my ear to help make the earache go away. But there's a big difference between smoking a pack a day and using it with prayer and intention and ceremony.
And I think we could say the same thing about marijuana. I certainly used marijuana very unconsciously as a young person. I used it to get high. Let's be honest. I smoked weed to get high, like when I was a young person, smoked a ton of it. And then I went off of it because I became an adult and had to be responsible and had kids and all that. But then coming back, circling back to this topic, it's like, well, if I was going to use that now, I would be using it from a whole different space. If I was going to work with that plant, which I don't currently, but if I was going to, I would look at that plant and I would say, okay, this is my intention. This is my intent for healing. This is my intent for wisdom. This is my intent for communion. This is my intent for whatever. Plant, would you help me with this, right? And so it's a different relationship.
Absolutely. And I think that totally changes it. And I encourage people to pray before doing any consciousness altering substance, to set an intention. I think it's a lot safer. I think it decreases the potential for abuse. You're not just doing it for unconsciously, you're doing it, and so I try to teach that. And it's something I taught my children, that when they became of the age and they were interested in that, I said, you need to have an intention. You need to be in a safe space. It's probably best to do it when your work is done. But so.
Yeah. Instead of just trying to distract, numb, tune out, it's the same as taking the pills, in my opinion. You know, it's like, well, just give me a pill so I don't have to feel anything, numb me out, keep me away from all my feelings. So I think, you know, there's so much available to us in nature. Nature's given us a medicine cabinet. She has given us everything we need. And here we are trying to recreate it. Here we're trying to, like, well, I'm not going to take what nature gave me. I want to create my own thing. You know, like, what the heck? Why are we doing this?
Well, you know, first of all, you can't patent a plant. So when we look at, you know, drugs, first of all, I work part-time in a holistic pharmacy, and I've seen a lot of drugs get recalled even after the proper testing. And I know that America is waiting for the vaccine. The whole world is waiting for the vaccine. But I remember in the 80s, the swine flu vaccine killed a bunch of people and also made a bunch of people paralyzed that are still paralyzed if they're still alive. So, you know, I tend to question that, but a plant is like a symphony. It contains chlorophyll and essential oils and vitamins and minerals and water and glycosides and saponins. And when pharmaceutical companies look at possible drugs, they often started with plants, but then they don't keep it as a symphony. They extract one active ingredient, but then it becomes a drug. And it's possible that that whole symphony of chlorophyll and vitamins and minerals help to prevent side effects. So one example I'll give you, Carrie, is, you know, coca leaves in South America.
Yes, coca leaves
are high in protein, high in minerals. They help with altitude sickness. They help with hunger. They help with some of the travelers, you know, dilemmas that they get when they're in this high altitude. And when in the 1800s, they started removing just one active component from coca leaves, because coca leaves are not considered addicting. Oh, let's just turn it into a white crystalline powder. Cocaine, heroin, white sugar, white flour. We remove all the wholeness of it, and then we have a drug which becomes addicting and more likely to have side effects, but you can't patent the plant. Who's going to do research on, like, well, dandelions are a wonderful diuretic? No, they have to look at, no, we have to do that. We have to make it into a drug so we can recoup the $50 million we put into research and development. So I'm saying, you know, it's time to really give back nature's due and see that you can't really recreate that. You know, right now, Nexium has been recalled. Is it Nexium? Yeah. I mean, it just got recalled a few months ago for containing cancer-causing agents. Really? Well, that went through all the studies. So who are you going to trust? You know, I also like to say science gave us thalidomide. That was a perfectly good drug. You know, thousands of children born without arms and legs. Okay, let's just trust that. Let's trust Roundup, which there's, you know, so many lawsuits for glycophosphates causing cancer. What about DDT? Oh, well, that was a great invention. So, you know, I'm sticking with Mother Nature. I'm sticking with the gifts that our creators given to us, and I'm dedicated to using those. And I wish that other people use those, would really think about the impact on others, because, you know, we're all sharing the air and the water. So you might think, well, it's my lawn, I can do what I want. But you know what? When the rains come, it ends up washing it into the groundwater that we all share. So we have to
then we're all drinking, you know, Roundup in our water, you know. So yeah, that's one thing people don't really think about. We're in a closed system. This is a closed system, people. It's a closed system. It's on Earth. Everything you drink has everything else in it around the whole Earth is in this glass of water. Has everything that's ever been put in the earth, including your ancestors, in this glass of water. I'm drinking ancestors, I'm drinking Roundup, I'm drinking whatever else. It's in the water. It's everywhere. You can't just avoid it. So got to think about that. And everything's a spectrum. Like there's medicine. There's a point at which something, even as a tobacco, there's a point at which the tobacco is a medicine. And then if there's too much, it's toxic. So there is a, we have to learn how to listen. We have to learn how to listen to the medicines and listen to our bodies and listen to our environment and see the balance, right?
And to carry, yes, indeed. And, I want to say that I'm not against, life-saving medicine. I think, believe me, if I were in a car accident, I would be so grateful that the good hospital care, and a lot of my friends are doctors and nurses. So I'm not trying to put that down. I'm just saying that, the first step is looking at what we can do. And, but very often when we have an illness, we start out with drugs and surgery as the first steps, whereas the first steps would be, maybe I need to heal my relations, maybe I need to get more rest, maybe I need to eat more salad, maybe I need to eat less sugar. So there may be like 6 or 7 things we do before we try drugs and surgery. So again, we are blessed to live in a time where there are life-saving techniques. So it's not to say that that doesn't have a use. I'm just trying to, as you said, the balance, Carrie. So, and very often one drug leads to another drug. If someone says, well, I'm just going to take a drug, but all of a sudden I'm so tired, I don't have any energy. So then you take another drug, and that more drug made me gain weight. Then we got another drug. So,
yeah, and pretty soon you're taking like 15 drugs every single day. When the simpler solution is pay attention sooner, listen, look for the natural solution to the way you feel, get your rest, get outside, take care of yourself, and catch it sooner. Catch it sooner before it's a big problem. So it sounds like you do a lot of education about this. What are some ways that you help to teach people about their education so that they can catch things sooner and don't end up in a spot at the 11th hour where they need some kind of drug, something like that?
I feel like I've put a lot down in writing 14 books. I do have a YouTube station, Brigitte Mars YouTube. I'm always, I have a lot of articles on my website, brigittemars.com. I also have a phone app I created called iPlant that works for iPhone and Android. So iPlant with Brigitte Mars. So let's say you've identified like, that's lamb's quarter or chickweed. You can look it up. Is it edible? What parts are edible? Is it safe for pregnant women? Is it safe for people on high blood pressure meds? So I feel like I've disseminated a lot of this information, and partly is because I'm 67. What my kids I want people to have this information after I leave the planet. I also want to say, Carrie, I've never learned to drive a car at 67. I've never had a driver's license, and it is possible to live on planet Earth without a car. I do take the bus. I do, fly sometimes on airplanes, and then I use public transport or whatever. But I think that's another thing we need to think about as we go back to the new abnormal, is like hopefully we drive less, we carpool more, we walk more, and find like, maybe I don't need to go to the gym. I'm just going to walk to the store. I have a little rolly bag so I can pull my groceries. It's kind of like a meditation to do that,
Yeah, that's gorgeous. What a different way to live, and what a beautiful. I've actually had a really good friend who said the same thing. He rides his bike everywhere, rides his bike to work, rides his bike to the grocery store. He said that's what they made backpacks for. You put everything you need in your backpack and go to the store, and come back. That's good. Yeah. We just need to be more inventive with our thinking, thinking outside our box, thinking outside the box of how we were domesticated to show up in this world. So, well, thank you so much for all the lively conversation and wisdom that you shared today. And I'll definitely point people to the resources, to your website, brigittemars.com.
Thank you. And you send me links and I'll put it on my social media and my newsletter. It was a pleasure talking with you, Carrie Hummingbird, and let me know if you want to chat again.
Okay, beautiful. Well, everybody, that was a great episode. If you liked this, you found it helpful, please share it out. Please like and comment on iTunes or wherever you found it. That helps the search engine know that this is important material that you would like other people to see. And of course, you can directly share the links with people that in your communities. And I'm going to give everybody kisses. Here comes the kisses, everybody. You can join me, Brigitte. We love you. We love you. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day, everybody. We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.